Good day, good evening, depending on where you're from. Dylan Bruton back with Pelicans Daily presented by Fan Arts. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Well, against them OKC Thunder, they did it. Punched their ticket, now they're going to the finals. We're going to see if either the Knicks can keep the series alive or if the Pacers are also going to go to the finals. A little battle of the small markets, you know. Gotta love it, gotta love it. But you know what you're here for. You're here to talk about those Pelicans. So, I was perusing the internet, you know what I'm saying, and I found a very interesting article by Andy Quake, and it talked about a potential trade with the Orlando Magic. Now, the Orlando Magic, they were a team that surprised a lot of people, but for those who've been watching hoops, and I say this as a Duke fan because, you know what I'm saying, shout out to my guy Paolo Banchero, I've been known about the Magic. Been known that they're a very tough-nosed team, very scrappy team, but they've got some guys on there, you know, most notably Paolo, but also Franz Wagner. You know what I'm saying? They got a squad. They got a squad. But they're not quite there yet. You know what I'm saying? Their ceiling is gradually increasing, but they're not quite there yet. And likely they're going to have to make, you know, a trade. Last season they were the second best defensive rated team in the league, third best at defending in the paint, and they held opponents to a league low 31.4 attempts from three. And in this past playoffs, they gave the Celtics a tough run. Now, granted, it was a 5-game series, but make no mistake, the Celtics had to fight and claw. And you could argue that the way that the Magic beat up the Celtics is kind of why the Knicks were able to, you know, kind of out physical and outmatch them. You know, so the Magic are a team that's very tough nosed, and they built their identity on defense. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of who's been at the helm these last few years at coach, but it started with Coach Clifford and with Coach, you know, Jamal Mosley now. He's keeping that intensity. You know what I'm saying? Some might argue it's a little, they border on a little dirty, but, you know, they play physical, tough-nosed basketball. But I saw an interesting trade that involved our guy, Mr. C.J. McCollum, who got nothing but love for, nothing but respect for. But at this stage of his career, in his 30s, but still playing at a high level, he is arguably the most expendable player on the roster. But this was an interesting trade. So, obviously, as mentioned, we would give up C.J. McCollum. And they were 17th in bench scoring last year, so this addresses an immediate need. When Powell went down, they had some struggles. And when Jalen Suggs went down, because he really was like he's like the third guy of that trio, they struggled even more. You know what I'm saying? They lost ball handling, they lost shot creation, and they lost a floor spacer. These are all three areas that CJ still excels very well in. Last year, you know what I'm saying, despite eventually succumbing to injuries, averaged 21, nearly 4 boards, 4 assists, 44% from the field, 37 from three, and nearly 74% from the free throw line. And this is all on a line with, you know, he's averaged nearly 20 a game, 4 boards, and 4 assists on 45% shooting, 40% from three, and 80% from the free throw line. So that's his career numbers. And he's enjoyed a very good career. You know what I'm saying? You cannot at all in any way, shape, or form say CJ has not been a high-level performer. And granted, with the Magic being so gritty and tough, you still need to balance that out with offense. Because, yes, defense wins championships, but you got to be able to stay in the game. You got to be able to duke it out with the best teams. And the best teams, I mean, look at OKC. They've got about 12 or 13 guys and 6 or 7 off the bench who could easily be starters high level on another team. You know, on a team with significant less stakes, and having that versatility in a variety of offensive playmakers, it makes things a lot easier. But then for the Pelicans, right? Pelicans struggled a lot last year defensively, a lot. So this was a very interesting trade because it would be very much targeting addressing the defense, right? We finished 29th in defense. It's not going to cut it. 27th in defending the three. It's not going to cut it. 25th in defending the paint. That's not going to cut it. It's just not. No way, shape, or form. But we would pick up Gogo Badatse, who very underrated big man, you know, from Georgia, not the state, but the country. 6'10" center. He was also in Zion's draft class in 2019 as the 18th overall pick by the Pacers. last year averaged seven points, nearly 7 boards, a block a game, 61% from the field, 64% from the free throw line. Doesn't have the highest of ceilings, but he's a very talented defender, whether as a weak side or whether in the paint, you know what I'm saying? And that again, that makes life easier when you have someone who in the paint is going to make opponents think twice about coming in. You throw him and Eve Missy in there. Granted, you're not getting a ton of offense, but you're getting a lot of defense. You're getting physicality, and you're getting two guys who are very immovable and still pretty young. You know what I'm saying? Gogo's my age of 26. Eve is 21. So there's still, ceiling and growth there. Now, the next two players that would be added would be veterans, but veterans who have a lot of experience and also have championship experience. The first guy, KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, last year averaged nearly 9 points, 2 boards, 2 assists, a steal, 44% from the field, 34% from three, 86% from the free throw line. For his career, he's averaged 11 points, 3 boards, 2 assists, 1 steal, 43% from the field, 37% from three, and 82% from the free throw line. Now, KCP has had a very interesting career that's taken him to multiple stops, but most notably, he won a championship with the Lakers in 2020 and the Nuggets in 2023. Now, when you got a guy who is a respected veteran, he also came out of CJ's draft class in 2013. He was actually picked above CJ, funny enough, so kind of wild. He was the 8th pick while CJ was the 10th pick. When you got a guy like KCP, who has been a respected veteran, who's, regarded as a very, one of the better glue guys, one of the better 3-and-D type of glue players, and just a veteran presence, it plays a big role. We have a very young team. You know what I'm saying? Most of the roster is around my age or younger. So, getting a guy who still plays at a high level, does his role, comes in with that lunch pail mentality, it makes things a lot easier. And he's done it twice at the biggest stage of winning championships. You know what I'm saying? People talk about all the time that 2020 Lakers team, if they had kept a guy like KCP, that would have made a big difference in the years that followed after in them trying to potentially build a dynasty. Same with the Denver team of 2023. People wonder if you keep a hard-nosed guy like that, right? That brings a different type of intensity. Knowing President Dumars, right? And he knows all about having hard-nosed guys. He literally himself was that type of player in Detroit, and he was that type of he built that type of culture in Detroit. You know what I'm saying? Very defensive-heavy identity. Then another guy that would be added, Corey Joseph, backup point guard, 2011, 29th overall pick. The numbers don't jump off the screen. He averaged 3.5 points, 1.5 boards, 1 assist, 40% from the field, 36 from three, 78 from the free throw line. For his career, he's averaged about 7 points, 2 boards, 3 assists, a steal, 44% from the field, 35% from three, and 79% from the free throw line. And it's funny because I remember Corey Joseph coming up, and he actually, I remember when he was at Finley Prep with him, Tristan Thompson, the Canadian connection there. There was a lot of Canadians up in there, you know what I'm saying? Anthony Bennett came through, Brandon Ashley. I mean, those were some squads. Those were some hoop squads, and he was a McDonald's All-American. A lot of people expected him to have a bigger career, but it just never materialized that way. But he's a very reliable backup point guard. He's also a champion. He was on the 2014 Spurs roster, you know what I'm saying? Granted, as a backup, but still. Having guys in your locker room who have won championships, it plays a big role. You know what I'm saying? We currently don't have anyone on our team who has won a championship. We've got guys who've gone to the playoffs and made some deep runs, and that's great. But when you've got a guy who when you have not just one, but multiple guys, and then take KCP, he's done it twice. You got a guy that multiple times reached that mountaintop. That plays a big role. You know what I'm saying? None of these guys are necessarily floor raisers, but they bring a different type of energy and grit that's needed. You know what I'm saying? We've got a lot of guys that can score, that can put up buckets, but three-point shooting is definitely a need. Both Joseph and KCP can space the floor and can step in and play reliable minutes when called upon. And then the hard-nosed defensive grit, that plays a big role. And having veterans like that in your locker room You know what I'm saying? It's positive for the young guys who are watching, right? It's positive for them to watch and take it in and see, okay, this is what it takes to be a pro. This is what it takes to be a champion. And they're learning that directly. And then finally, right? Because this is a pretty big haul that we get for CJ. We get the 25th overall pick via Denver. Doesn't hurt to stockpile on picks. I saw a comment on the last video where basically said that we shouldn't move any picks. And I very much agree with that mindset. You know what I'm saying? Again, looking at the success of teams like OKC, looking at the success of teams like the Rockets, right? They're building from the ground up. We are trying to build from the ground up, build a strong, stable foundation. That's the only way that you're able to win in today's NBA. You look at like the last 4 championships. The Bucks, the Warriors, the Nuggets, Celtics, and now whoever is going to win, likely OKC. So 5 championships, right? All built from the ground up. Yes, there were different free agents or different trades made here, but the foundation, the core, built from the ground up. And, you know, the 25th pick, it doesn't have a bad history. You know what I'm saying? The best player to be picked from there, Mark Price back in 86. And Mark Price, you know what I'm saying, I always say if you combine Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf and Mark Price, you get Steph Curry. You know what I'm saying? As far as just ahead of his time player, one of the best shooters of his day, very tough point guard, all-star with the Cavs, on some very good Cavs teams with Brad Daugherty and Larry Nance Sr. You know what I'm saying? 98, Al Harrington, you know what I'm saying? Stretch 4, guy who played on a lot of teams, you know what I'm saying? Played some big minutes for those Pacers, played some big minutes for, the Knicks. You know what I'm saying? Guy who stayed around the league for a long time, very well respected, played big minutes. He was on that We Believe Warriors team as well. You know what I'm saying? And then 2014, Clint Capella, a guy who I've said that that's the type of ceiling you want a guy like Yves Missy to reach. And if we do draft Kaman, that's another guy that he should watch. You know what I'm saying? One of the best rim running big men, played a lot of big minutes with those Rockets teams in the 2010s, and is still providing value with the Hawks. And then another guy, Emmanuel Quickley, one of the best, 2020 draft, one of the best off the bench scorers, spark plug guys, very much like a Lou Will type of player in terms of, being able to be a microwave heat scorer. And it always helps to have those type of players. So if we come out with an extra draft pick, 3, top, stud defenders, that's a trade well spent, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of room for more, right? We kind of have an idea of our core, but we're still building there. But you get veterans, and then you get guys who also are able to play defense, get another pick in a very deep draft. This is a trade that I approve of. It would be sad to see CJ go. I'm not going to sit and say it wouldn't. But you have to think about logistically, logically. So I'm not fully opposed. Now, I want to give a shout out because I'm a firm believer of giving credit where credit is due. But I got a shout out to my guy, the Takeover 42 for this one. But Danny Wolf. Now, Danny Wolf, I was familiar with. You know what I'm saying? Michigan enjoyed a really good year this past year. They went 27-10, went all the way to the Sweet 16, and, played a tough game against the number 1 seed Auburn. And Danny Wolf was the driving catalyst, you know what I'm saying, as a player, 7 foot center. He's a junior. This past year, he averaged 13 a game, nearly 10 boards, nearly 4 assists, a block, a steal on 50% shooting, basically 34% from the 3. Free throw shooting, though, got to work. 59%. That's not going to cut it. And for his career, has averaged 11 points, 8 boards, 2.5 assists, a block, nearly a steal, 48% from the field, 34% from 3, and 65% from the free throw line. And he's a very interesting player because as a player, he's a jumbo type of big. You know what I'm saying? He's a big forward. He's a big 5 that can handle the ball, that can shoot. He had 15 double-doubles this past year, 8 20-point games. Season high was 23 versus Minnesota. He went 8 for 10 from the field, 3 for 3 from 3. and 4 for 5 from the free throw line. Sadly, they did lose 84-81 in that game, but great game on his end. His season high in rebounds was 14 versus Rutgers. Against Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. They won that game 66-63. He had 16 points, 2 assists, 4 blocks, 2 steals, 5 of 9 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3, 5 of 7 from the free throw line. Assists, his season high was 9 versus Arkansas, and he put they lost that game 89-87, but played a very well-rounded game. And then this game in particular, he was just on another tear. But his season high for blocks, he got 6 against USC. They won that game 85-74. He had 21 points on 9 of 12 shooting, 2 for 3 from the 3, 13 boards, 7 assists, 2 steals. Now, watching him, he's not the most explosive He's not an explosive guy at all. That's not his game. That's not his game. He's been compared to guys like Lauri Markkanen and Vlade Divac as his ultimate ceiling, which it's a very deadly player, though. You know what I'm saying? Lauri has been an all-star, most improved player. Vlade was an all-star. Vlade, aside from being traded for Kobe on draft night in 96, was a very good center for the Lakers and was a very good center for the Hornets and was a big reason why the Kings in the early 2000s were one of the best teams in the West, and they were the team that was going a lot at the Lakers within their state. He's also been compared to guys like Kyle Anderson, Moritz Wagner, Kelly Olynyk, who's on our team right now, and Frank Kaminsky. Now, nothing about that screams superstar, and it might be a reach at pick 7, but when you think about the versatility that he possesses, the skill set, and the defensive ability, because that's the thing. He's not a great athlete at all. That's a big weakness. That's something that scouts are really looking at, looking at his foot speed. He doesn't really dunk the ball a lot. So there is some concern about his athleticism, about how that's going to translate at the next level. However, skill, you cannot deny the skill that this young man has and the versatile all-around ability. And, he played a really good game against Auburn. And it's not like Auburn was no slouch. They had the SEC Player of the Year in Johnny Broome. And, he put up 20 points, 6 boards, a block, an assist, 9-18 from the field, 2-4 from 3. They did lose 78-65. And they couldn't just, there was a lot of firepower that Auburn team had. But, he saved his best for last. And in the tournament, in the 3 games that they played, he averaged 14 a game, nearly about 9 boards, 2 assists, 2 blocks, 45% from the field, 33% from 3, and 25% from the free throw line. So, as someone who is a good shooter, you would expect better free throw shooting. That is something that he has to work on. But when looking at the all-around skill set, thinking about how he could fit, right? He's someone who would be able to provide some very unique and creative lineups. You know what I'm saying? You throw him in there with Eve. Let's say you throw like a lineup with him, Eve, and Zion, right? He makes up for Zion's lack of floor spacing, and he makes up and he adds another defensive presence alongside Eve. And he's a ball handler. So you know what I'm saying? Like that's just one idea, but that's not the only way you could go. But he could provide a lot of mismatches, and I do believe that the best coaches are the ones who know how to exploit and add to mismatches. Now I saw some people in the Michigan Reddit calling him like the store brand Nikola Jokic, and I feel like people are rushing, to make to find the next Jokic, which is so that's just like when Giannis started breaking out, all the hype and the rave about finding a player like Giannis with his athletic profile. You know what I'm saying? Guys like those just don't grow on trees. I say the same. Y'all hear me say that about Zion all the time. A Zion does not grow on trees. But I think that there's a lot of potential. I love the versatility in his game. I love the well-roundedness, and I think that he could develop into a very good player. He might not be a star, you know what I'm saying? And some people might feel like that's a reach, but multiple needs as far as with, a big who can play defense, but also who can provide mismatches for the defense because of either something like floor spacing or ball handling. I think it makes it a lot easier. And, I think about, with that Pistons team back in '04, right? Rasheed Wallace was a very good defender, but what made him even more dangerous and deadly was his ability to create for others and his ability to space the floor. You know what I'm saying? Whether from mid-range or three. And Danny Wolf can shoot the ball well, he can handle the ball well, and he can defend the ball well. These are three things that are incredibly important and valuable to have. But I mentioned Jokic, and a guy that I've seen whose name's floated around a lot for us as a potential coach if Willie doesn't end up sticking around or we end up giving him his pink slip. But Mike Malone. Now, Mike Malone right now, he's up on ESPN. He's firing it up, doing his thing. Unfortunately, was fired this past year. The Nuggets were 47-32. So that was, kind of crazy to fire a coach. Kind of crazy to fire a coach with 3 games left of the season. You know what I'm saying? And they had a, nearly 60% win percentage. Nuggets were, a 3rd seed in the West this year. And it was very shocking, you know what I'm saying? And Mike Malone in 12 seasons has enjoyed a good career for himself. You know what I'm saying? His first 4 seasons as a coach, he didn't make the playoffs. His first 2 with Sacramento, because he was the coach there first. He went 39-67, but he really he was starting to turn a corner his second year, but they fired him in only 24 games into the season. But he had a win percentage of 37. So it made him expendable. But that their loss was the Nuggets' gain. He came over to the Nuggets. Wasn't able to get to the playoffs his first 3 seasons, but you saw the progression. You saw them get better. They allowed that nucleus of Jokic and Jamal Murray to develop, to really build. And, then from after, from 2018 through 2024, they became one of the best teams out in the West. He went 44-36 with the 55% win percentage, and it culminated with an NBA championship in 2023. And the most amount of wins he had, the year after the finals, because they beat the Heat in I believe 5 or 6 games. They went 57-25 the next year in 2023-2024, and they lost in the conference semis 4-3 versus a red hot Minnesota Timberwolves team led by Anthony Edwards. And overall for his coaching career, he's 510 and 394, wins and losses for 56.4% win percentage. The man's resume speaks for itself. You know what I'm saying? He's a great coach. I'm not going to sit and sugarcoat or be, the man is a very good coach, widely respected, very player friendly, good at maximizing talent, good at building, good at helping cultivate. I do believe that under the tutelage of Mike Malone, again, guys like Nikola Jokic, guys like Jamal Murray were able to take their game to another level. He really believed in them, but he allowed them to play to their game, play to their strength. And I believe that that's the type of coach that does play a big role in, how a champion is made. I mean, to keep talking about the Pistons, right? They went from Rick Adelman to Larry Brown, and they didn't miss a beat. You know what I'm saying? They didn't miss a beat at all, and the right coach plays a big role. Now, talking about coaches, you know what I'm saying? Because the grass is not always green on the other side. We got to talk about our current guy, Willie Green. Now, in 4 seasons with the team, he's went 148-8 and 180 with a 45.1% win-loss percentage. 2 playoff appearances in his name, back in 2022, 2024. 2-8 record. We won 2 games against the Suns in 2022. Unfortunately, got swept last year, 4-0 against OKC. So 20 win percentage. It's rough. And then this last year, you went 21-61. It's not, that's not good either. But last year, you went 49-33. You know what I'm saying? Very good win percentage. I mean, very, very good record. Willie Green, I think, is definitely, and especially as a former NBA guy, because I mean, Mike Malone, he played college ball. Comes from Queens. He's got a different type of energy and grit that he brought to Denver. Denver's a very different environment. Willie Green, 12-year pro, played a long time, was a very, respected role player, tough-nosed player. Willie Green, I think he's a good coach in the sense of, like, I do think the players respect him. I do think there is a good healthy relationship that he has with the players, especially as a former player, and it always helps to have that inside scoop. But it's a results-driven league. It's as with anything in life, it's all about the results, right? Just like y'all, when y'all get on me about different takes, right? Y'all, it's all about the result, right? I think that and especially like with the Detroit connection, right? Willie's originally a Detroit guy, is originally from Detroit. The way I look at things, I could see President Dumars giving Willie a chance, giving him a chance to prove himself at least for like the next 2 years, because these are two very strong draft classes. So see how he does with the current team, how they do if they either pick 7 or they make a trade and they stockpile more picks, and then just seeing everyone at full health, because at full health, right, we won 49 games, and that was without we didn't have a DeJounte Murray on the roster. You know what I'm saying? So how do we do at full health? How do we do with everyone fully able to play? It's reason to ask. It's reason to wonder, and I think it's easy. Again, like I said, the grass is not always greener. As much as people feel like, okay, if we get a coach like Mike Malone, it's going to instantly turn us into a championship contender. We don't know that. You know what I'm saying? You don't know that. And Mike Malone will be walking into a very different situation in New Orleans versus Denver, right? You know what I'm saying? There was a little bit more structure, stability, a lot more of a winning history than there's been in New Orleans. You know what I'm saying? Denver has had some great players come through. Carmelo Anthony, Alex English, Dan Issel, Chauncey Billups, Dikembe Mutombo, rest in peace, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, who I mentioned earlier. They've had some really talented players come through. And not saying that we haven't, but like their history, right? Their history speaks for itself, and they've won an NBA Finals. That does something different to the culture of a team. We don't have championship pedigree. Not yet. I do believe that we can. I do believe that it's possible. But we have to deal with the reality of the situation. Now, the way I look at it is, if Willie is unable to turn things around these next 2 years, because I think 2 years is fair. I think 2 years is reasonable. You know what I'm saying? See what he can do with a fully healthy roster this year, and especially next year. Because they'll, by that point, if, DeJounte is still on the roster in particular, he should be back closer to where he was before coming off that Achilles. He's going to be, he's going to have his rust, initially, but by year 2, and, see what we can do with the roster, see what we can do with our current core, with Zion, with Trey Murphy, with Herb, with E. Missy, with Jose Alvarado, with young guys like Antonio Reeves, with young guys like Brandon Boston, with young guys like Jordan Hawkins. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it's reasonable to give Willie 2 years, 3 at max. After that, though, if the results are still the same, we're still a dwindling team, we're still struggling, then you pull the plug. But I feel like, ripping the Band-Aid off without addressing the wound is not always a solution. And Mike Malone, I think, is a very good coach. So I don't think he would. I think he would do well. I think the city would embrace him. I think they would love his energy, his grit, and his fire. And that's where, like, it's hard, right? You have to think about speculation, and you also have to think about reality of what's present. And that's just where I don't know. But I do think he would do well, and going off his pedigree, right? And the way he was able to help again, I keep saying, Jokic and Murray reach another level as players, I would love to see him do that with guys like Zion and Trey Murphy, who I look at as building blocks. Would love to see what he can do with someone like her, right? So there's a lot of potential. I'm saying nothing is for certain, but I figured, I've seen a lot of y'all comment about hire Mike Malone. So I was like, all right, let's talk about Mike. Let's talk about him. I'm saying he's doing a lot of talking right now as a broadcaster on ESPN. There's been some very funny sound bites from him. But I do believe that he's going to be back coaching soon. And, I think it's reasonable to consider someone like him. He's got his resume speaks for himself. He's very respected. The players love him. Those are all successful ingredients and good components in being a great coach. Food for thought. Now, y'all know, all roads lead to Zion. I'm gonna say like a broken record, but we gotta talk about my guy Zion Lateef Williamson. So, a recent report came out from Kevin O'Connor on Yahoo Sports, and he mentioned that everybody on the Pelicans is untouchable. Now, this almost in a sense contradicts all the stuff I've been saying to y'all. You know what I'm saying? Especially in the aftermath of President Dumars sending Zion to the draft lottery to represent the team. So currently there are no untouchables. That even includes Trey. That includes Herb, Eve, Jose. You know what I'm saying? CJ, DeJounte. That just goes all down the line. There are no untouchables. And with Zion, he's set to make $39 million next year, and we've got him under contract until summer 2028. This is a big year for Zion. You know what I'm saying? As belabored on and mentioned, this is a huge year for Zion. When healthy, Zion's impact and talent cannot be denied. Again, players who average 25, 7, and 5 do not grow on trees, especially on efficient shooting. It's so tantalizing with what Zion can do and what his potential suggests. Again, I still think he has superstar written all over him. I still do. 7 years though. It's been a long 7 years though. So there's, and he hasn't been able to play in the playoffs. We know about the health, and we know sometimes his focus has not always been on basketball. I'm gonna just leave it at that. But I do feel like President Dumars, unless we are able to get, a superstar like a Giannis, right? I don't see, or we're able to move up to pick 2 or 1, or sorry, just in the top 3. Let's just go there. Let's go in the top 3. I don't see us moving Zion as much. I feel like the thing with draft season, the thing with off season, the thing with anything related to trades is that it's chess, not checkers. There's a lot of different diversions. There's a lot of different divide and conquer that goes on. And it's a smart way to keep things copacetic, right? It's a smart way to fan fires out, but it's also a good way to provide confusion for other teams. So, and Will Gilroy of The Athletic reported, that Zion and President Dumars both feel pretty good about the future. You know what I'm saying? So I trust the source of the direct people involved, the direct people who are going to play an impact. President Dumars is going to be the one to either make the decision or not. And Zion, as the player, is the one who's going to be impacted, whether he's there or not. I ultimately see if Zion produces, he's able to stay healthy most of the year, and if we're at least able to get to playoff, pushing playoff contention or in the playoffs, I don't see, I don't see us moving him. But I do believe it never hurts to listen to offers, but the only downside to listening to offers is you run the risk of what does that rub off on the player in question, right? This is their future. This is their life. It's not, it's not Zion has a baby girl, you know what I'm saying? He has to think about himself as a man, as a provider for his household. You know what I'm saying? That's just going off of life things, you know what I'm saying? Because these guys are human beings at the end of the day. I know it's easy for a lot of us to get on our couches and point fingers and throw shots. But we don't really know what it's like to be a pro. You know what I'm saying? I largely assume no one in the comment section has played pro ball. And if y'all had, please correct me. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to make assumptions. But it's easy for us to judge. But at the same time, this is their job. They've invested a lot into their craft. This is what they get paid to do. They get paid a lot of money. They get to enjoy quite a bit of comfort, quite a bit of, abundance and excess of just about whatever they want. So it all comes with the territory, right? That no one is safe from accountability. No one can't be judged. So, again, looking at Zion, and I, as a Duke fan, I got none but love for Zion. And I rock with Zion as a guy. I think he's a good dude. And I really believe that he still has what it takes to be a face of the league guy. And people often, in comparing past face of the leagues, outside of Magic, outside of Bird, outside of Kobe, outside of, Russell, but guys like LeBron, guys like Steph, guys like Kareem, guys like KD, it took them a while to win their first couple rings. You know what I'm saying? It took them a while to get to that point where they were in contention. Now, granted, some took a little less time versus others, right? 7 seasons without playing the playoffs is a pretty crazy stat. But we don't get to playoff contention in either our last 2 playoff appearances without Zion. We just don't. Anyone saying otherwise, you're lying to yourself. Let the hate go. Let the hate out your heart. And especially last year. Again, I'm going to keep talking about that play-in game, but that play-in game was the perfect display of what Zion could be and is innately, right? 40 against Bron, outplayed him, was able to get shots wherever he wanted, was so comfortable out there, handling the ball. Was running the break, was pushing pushing every single play. That to me is who Zion is, and that's to me where I think Zion is like, I feel like that's what his talent, it just speaks of, it screams, it that's what we want to see on a full-time basis. And if it wasn't for the injury, we likely win that we win that game. And we don't finish in the 8th seed, and we have a bit more of a favorable outcome in the 7th seed, playing the 2 seed versus playing the 1 seed. There's a lot of different factors that have to be considered and taken into account. And I still believe in Zion, but as I've said from the jump, the only trade offers that I'm listening to are for a superstar like a Giannis Antetokounmpo, a floor raiser, a superstar. Or if we can move up in like the top 3, or we can get a bunch of picks, that's the only way that I can justify feeling good about shopping Zion actively. Otherwise, I don't think that there's anything out there that's better than what we got. And sometimes in life, you just have to understand that. That's just the gem. That's just the bar. Sometimes you got to appreciate what you got, recognize that, it could be a whole lot worse, right? You could be a team with no direction. And I don't believe that this is a team with no direction. I believe that we're a team figuring things out, figuring out our identity, figuring out how to build and instill a long-term winning culture. That's the goal. So I did find that article very interesting because it almost in a way like contradicts everything that I've been saying and pushing. But it's there's 2 sides to every story. There's 2 sides, there's 2 sides of a coin. So you kind of know that, if you push one side enough, there's going to be perspective on the other side. And, given the nature of how things have played out, it makes sense why Zion is potentially expendable. I don't want us to get rid of Zion. The goal is not to get rid of Zion, but these things happen. It's possible. So we have to ultimately see what happens on draft night. At the 25th is going to be a very big day. June 25th, get your calendars marked. A lot's going to go down, and a lot is very interesting with us, especially given we own the Bucks picks for the next 3 years, right? So who knows? Zion for Giannis is not out of the impossibility. It's not. That's probably like the only trade for Zion that I really feel confident in this day right now, being like, yep, send it through. These other ones, I'm a little, or hell no. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a variety of those. So we gonna see. But that's what you're here for. So this has been a great video. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. Follow Fan Arch on all social media platforms. They're doing awesome and amazing things. Thank y'all for the support. I want to give a little shout out to my parents. 16th wedding anniversary. 19th. Math. 6'9". A little dyslexia. You know, a little fun fact about me. But happy 19 years to my parents and their wedding. Love them and appreciate them for everything that they've done for me. But y'all continue to pay it forward for others. You know what I'm saying? Go out there, be a good person. Rep the Pelicans, right? A dawn is upon us. When draft night hits, oh yeah, it's going to be on. You know what I'm saying? I got faith that we're coming out of this draft with a great player, with a player that's going to bring a lot of great value. So I'm very excited for this off season. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot to look forward to. So make sure that you're staying tapped in. And you can follow me on the gram, Dylan_Bruton, Bruton 10. You know what I'm saying? If you want to hit me up with any takes, any perspectives, love to. Now, I'd love to give you credit where credit is due. But much love, y'all. Stay blessed. See you next video.